Alright, everybody. Well, fellow horror fans, it's time for us to finally take a look at Freddy versus Jason. Since his last defeat, Freddy's been in hell and unable to invade children's dreams, as he knows the Spring would have gone to extremes to make sure their children have forgotten him. Using his remaining power, Freddy wrecks Jason Voorhees. Appearing as Jason's mother, Pamela Voorhees, he manipulates Jason into killing the teens of Springwood in order to create a fear of the townsfolk that Freddy has returned, which would allow him to regain his strength. Meanwhile, Laurie Campbell, who lives with her widowed father, has a sleepover with her friends Kia and Gib. They are later joined by Trey, Gib's emotionally abusive boyfriend, and his friend Blake. Jason enters the house and murders Trey, and the police suspect Freddy. After a nightmare, Blake awakens to find his father decapitated by Jason, who then kills Blake himself. The police call it a murder-suicide the following day, hoping to conceal Freddy's return from the rest of the town. Elsewhere, Laurie's ex-boyfriend Will Rollins and his friend Mark Davis, forcibly institutionalized at the Weston Hill Psychiatric Hospital, are made to take Hypnosil to suppress their dreams because of their previous contact with Freddy. A news report about the killings prompts them to escape and return to Springwood to warn Laurie about Freddy. That night, Laurie and the others attend a rave in a cornfield. Freddy tries to kill Gib in a nightmare, but Jason kills her first in the real world along with others at the rave, angering Freddy, who realizes that Jason's killing spree will deny him victims. Will, Laurie, and Kia escape the rave with school nerd Charlie Linderman and stoner Bill Freeberg. After dropping off the latter three in a confrontation with Dr. Campbell, who was responsible for having Will and Mark committed to Weston Hills, over the certainty they saw Laurie's father murder her mother, Will and Laurie head to Mark's house, only to see him get killed by Freddy. Deputy Scott Stubbs, believing Jason is a copycat killer, makes contact with Laurie and her friends, who deduce Freddy's plan. Learning about Hypnosil, they try to get it from Weston Hills. However, Freddy possesses Freeberg, using him to dispose of the medicine. Jason arrives and electrocutes Stubbs. Freddy uses the possessed Freeberg to tranquilize Jason, causing him to fall asleep after slashing Freeberg in half. The teens devise a plan to pull Freddy from the dream world into reality and force him to fight Jason, bring the unconscious Jason back home to Camp Crystal Lake, where the real estate is in development. Freddy fights Jason in the dream world, but discovers that Jason has a subconscious fear of drowning. Freddy uses this to his advantage and Jason becomes afraid, reverting to his younger self. Laurie goes to sleep when her pull Freddy out and save Jason. As Freddy tortures Laurie in the dream world, revealing that he murdered her mother, Jason awakens at the real Camp Crystal Lake and pursues the teens, killing Linderman. Laurie is awakened and pulls Freddy into the physical world, where he is confronted by Jason. Freddy and Jason fight throughout the campgrounds, during which Jason kills Kia. Freddy uses the construction site to gain the upper hand and cuts off Jason's fingers, allowing Freddy to take his machete. As Freddy is slicing away at Jason, Laurie distracts before Jason punches his finger in his hand through Freddy's torso. Freddy retaliates by plunging Jason's machete into his side and Jason rips Freddy's gloved arm off. Laurie and Will set the dock on fire, causing numerous propane tanks to explode and throwing Freddy and Jason into the lake. Laurie and Will embrace as Freddy makes his way to them on the dock and is about to kill the couple with Jason's machete, but is impaled by Jason with his own clawed arm, allowing Laurie to behead Freddy with the machete. Jason falls off the dock and Freddy's head and body sink into the lake, both seemingly dead. After dropping the machete where Jason submerged, Laurie and Will leave. The following morning, Jason emerges from the water, holding his machete and Freddy's severed head. Freddy winks and his laughter is heard in the background, leaving the winner ambiguous. So do you think one? Alright, let's take a look at the production of this movie, beginning with the development. Influenced by a fan desire for a crossover film with the fight between Freddy and Jason, United Cinema and Paramount Pictures tried to make a Freddy vs. Jason movie in 1987. Frank McCusa Jr. enlisted Tom McLaughlin to unite the studios, but no agreement could be made. When Friday the 13th Part 7, Jason Takes Manhattan failed at the box office, Sean Cunningham wanted to reacquire the rights to Friday the 13th and began working with New Line Cinema on Freddy vs. Jason. Paramount and New Line wanted the license to the other's characters so they could control a crossover film. Negotiations on the project collapsed, and Paramount made Jason Takes Manhattan. After Friday the 13th Part 7, Jason Takes Manhattan was released in 1989. The rights were to Cesare Manasian and Bersomianto, sorry if I butchered that, who sold them to New Line. 2 years after initial talks fell apart, director Joseph Zito attempted to revive the project, but neither Mancuso or Robert Shea were interested in pursuing the project. Before Cunningham could begin to work on Freddy vs. Jason, Wes Craven returned to New Line to make a new Nightmare. This put Freddy vs. Jason on hold, but allowed Cunningham to bring Jason back with Jason Goes to Hell the final Friday. The ninth installment turned a healthy profit. In a 1995 interview with Fangoria, Craven was dismissive of the idea of Freddy vs. Jason, saying it was taking, quote, something that had a lot of impact and dignity and dragging it down to another level. Cunningham's frustration with the delayed development of Freddy vs. Jason led him to create Jason X to keep the series alive. Based on Jason Takes Manhattan's concept of taking Jason away from Crystal Lake, the 10th film put the titular character in space. The film lost its biggest supporter with the resignation of president of production Michael DeLuca. Lack of support led the finished film sit for 2 years before it was released on April 26, 2002. It was a series' lowest-grossing film on the domestic box office and had the largest budget of any of the films to date. Jason Goes to Hell, Adam Marcus and Dean Lorey recorded early on, but no official deal was finalized. New Line spent a reported $6 million on script development alone from several different writers. Louis Abernathy, writer of Deep Star 6 and House 4, was the first screenwriter attached to the film. Abernathy sought to direct his script, entitled Nightmare 13, Freddy Meets Jason, but his limited directing experience prohibited him from doing so. David J. Show was given an offer to write the script because he had just happened to walk by DeLuca's office one day. Show revised Abernathy's script, expanding upon a cult that worships Freddy Krueger. In 1994, DeLuca passed over the draft and turned to Brandon Braga and Ronald D. Moore, who wrote Freddy vs. Jason, which had a more adult tone than previous entries. The writing duo would depart the film and be replaced by Peter Briggs, who impressed the studio with his previous crossover attempt, Alien vs. Predator. Briggs' draft saw numerous returning characters across several films. By 1996, demonized scribes Cyrus Voris and Ethan Reeve were commissioned by Cunningham to write a new script under the title Freddy vs. Jason, Millennium Massacre, written by Rob Bottin, known for his makeup work on The Thing and Total Recall. Directing. New Line previously offered the spot to Guillermo del Toro and Peter Jackson to no avail. Bowden opted to drop the current draft of the script and pen his own treatment. David Escort and his writing partner James L. Robinson were subsequently hired to flesh out Bottin's treatment into a screenplay. No parties involved were happy with the script, leading to Goy and Robinson exiting the film. Bottin and his treatment retained despite clashing with the studio over the film's budget. Screen duo Jonathan Abel and Glenn Berger, known for their work on King of the Hill, were selected by the director to write a new script. The draft was widely disliked at Cunningham Productions. Bottin initially considered revising the script himself, but ultimately left the film altogether. In 1999, Mark Verheiden entered the project and proposed releasing the film with 2 different endings, one with Freddy winning and one with Jason winning. The next year, Douglas hired Mark Protosevich to write an entirely new script. Jason X writer Todd Farmer wrote for the film as well. Newcomers Mark Swift and Damian Shannon were hired after delivering a pitch that DeLuca was happy with in March 2002. Goy returned to the project once again in an effort to trim every ounce of fat from Swift and Shannon's 120-page script. Wes Craven, Guillermo del Toro, and Ronnie Yu all declined the opportunity to direct the film. Rob Zombie turned the film down in favor to House of a Thousand Corpses. Then upcoming filmmaker Juanmi Balaguerro campaigned to direct the film. Yu would ultimately sign on to direct the film in May 2002 after being given an enormous amount of creative freedom. According to Swift and Shannon, several endings were considered for the film. One involved Pinhead of the Hellraiser franchise, but only did not want to secure the rights for the character. And now on to the casting. In 1999, Robert Englund officially signed on to the film, marking his 8th appearance as the character Freddy Krueger. In August 2002, Entertainment Weekly revealed Kelly Rowland and Brad Renfro were cast in the film, while Kane Hodder would reprise his role as Jason Voorhees. However, conflicting reports emerged on IGN stating that the film was looking to reinvent the character, thus ditching Hodder. Monica Keena was selected to play the film's lead after an extensive search, while the supporting cast were made of Canadian actors, including Catherine Isabelle, Lachlan Monroe, Brendan Fletcher, Tom Butler, David Kopp, Jesse Hutch, Kyle Labine, and Zach Ward. Betsy Palmer was courted to reprise her role as Pam Voorhees from Friday the 13th, but declined due to salary disputes. Oh, bummer. Actress Paula Shaw would assume the role from Palmer. Just 1 week before production commenced, Jason Ritter was cast to place of Renfro. And now on to casting Jason. New Line, thinking that Freddy vs. Jason needed a fresh start, chose a different actor to play Jason. Cunningham disagreed with their decision, believing that Kane Hodder, who played Jason in the previous 4 films, was the best choice for the role. Although Hodder received a script for Freddy vs. Jason and met with director Ronnie Yu and New Line executives, Yu and Matthew Berry felt that the role should be recast to fit Yu's image of Jason. Hodder said that New Line did not give him a reason for the recasting. According to Yu, however, he wanted a taller, slower, and more deliberate Jason. The role went to Ken Kirzinger, a Canadian stuntman who worked on Jason Takes Manhattan. Yu said that Kirzinger was hired because he was taller than Robert Englund, who played Freddy Krueger. Kirzinger is 6 feet 5 inches tall, compared to the 6 foot 3 inch Hodder, and Yu wanted a much taller actor than the 5 foot 9 inch Englund. Kirzinger believed his experience on Part 7, doubling for Hodder in 2 scenes, and his height helped him land the part. New Line did not cast Kirzinger until they saw him on film, and his first scene was Jason walking down Elm Street. Douglas Tate played Jason in a reshot ending. Quote, "Unfortunately for me, it was the only scene I was hired to do. The test audience were confused about the original ending. They thought Jason Ritter's character was becoming Jason. You could see it in the deleted scenes. That's why they decided to reshoot the ending. Originally, I was being considered for playing the role of Jason the entire film. It was actually between me and Ken. When they took the film to Canada, I was out of luck. There was no way they were going to pay for my flight and hotel stay when Ken was a local. Also, Ken is older than me, and he was a lot more established in the business than I was at the time. I was on the film for a couple of days. The water sequence took a lot of preparation. They realized that when I got wet, I looked too skinny in the clothes, so they bulked me up with pads and extra clothing, so it looked like I was still big. Being with all this extra weight, one eye covered, a machete in one hand, Freddy's head in another hand, and totally being submerged in water made that seem very difficult. Also, Ronnie Yu wanted me to look like I was walking on land. He wanted to look like I could walk through the water without it making me rise to the surface. To do this effect, I had a rope tied underwater that I held onto my left hand, with Freddy's severed head in it also, and I held myself down on the ground so I could pull myself and walk forward, end quote. And now finally on to the filming. Filming for Freddy vs. Jason began September 9th, 2002 in Vancouver and ended on December 10th, 2002. So overall, I really, really love this movie, and it's definitely another personal favorite of mine, and I just freaking love it so much, and I'm curious to know, who do you guys think won this battle? So overall, I give Freddy vs. Jason 5 claw gloves out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in tomorrow as we tackle the final entry in the Nightmare series, the 2010 Nightmare on Elm Street remake. So, until then, remember everyone, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.